This is Chris, the Idaho Painter here on Paint Live TV. Today, I've got another solo series. I got a house behind me. It's a small one. I'm gonna try to paint this thing solo in 2 days. I did another solo series where I did a 2-story, very complicated house, and it took me about 8 days. So if you wanna see me paint this house alone in 2 days, stay tuned for this video. This is also gonna be part of Painter's Care. It's gonna be giving back to our community and a World War II veteran. This guy served our country. PPG is going to be providing the paint free of charge due to this man's service to our country. So if you want to see this video, me painting a World War II veteran's house solo in 2 days, stay tuned for this video. All right, we're out here. It is day 2 actually, because I was out here yesterday. I did the power washing. It took me about an hour to power wash this house. Very simple, easy. It's just single story. I think I'm gonna be able to do this house with probably a 6-foot ladder, maybe. Well, I got 1 peak. I'm gonna have to get my extension ladder out to do the 2 peaks on the sides, but very simple, easy to do. I should be able to paint this house in 2 days, solo, alone. I'm gonna be using PPG paints. They're providing the paint here because this is part of our Painter's Care program, giving back to our community and our veterans. This guy is a World War II veteran. I'm thankful to be able to come out here and paint his house. He's an amazing gentleman. So thank you to PPG for providing the paint. And this is going to be hopefully 2 days painting the house. I'm going to be using PPG paint. I'm not sure what paint they're going to be bringing out. They're going to be bringing it here pretty soon. We'll see what their paint is going to be. I've used their interior and exterior paints. Great paints to use, especially their ceiling paint. But enough talking. Let's get working. I'm going to start the prepping process. There's not a lot of prep work to do. The previous paint job, there was a lot of caulking done on it. So there's not a lot of caulking to do, and a little bit of sanding, a little bit of priming. We're going to show you that. I'm going to be able to get painting on this house actually today. My goal is to actually spray the body, do the prep and spray the body today, and then do the trim and the front door tomorrow. But anyways, enough talking. For the second time, let's go get painting. So I'm getting everything ready to start my prepping, and I always like to carry multiple tubes of caulking with me so I don't have to keep walking back and forth when I run out of caulking. So I'll keep 2 tubes in my pockets, and then I'll start off with a tube in my caulking gun. I'll be using, I've got a condition called wax bleed on this house. I'm going to be using a fast dry oil primer to prime the wax bleed condition, which is wax hydrocarbons coming to the surface of the paint, which will cause an adhesion issue, with the paint. If you've never heard of that condition, I've got a video talking about it and how to remedy it. So this is my last house exterior for the season. The weather's cooling down drastically, and when it starts to cool down, it's a lot more difficult to paint a house in a day or a couple days because the paints don't dry as fast. It's hard to mask over the top of paints when they're drying slower stuff. So it definitely slows the process down. I'm gonna start, I got a little bit of sanding here. I like using a paint eater. These discs don't clog up with paint, and they sand and grind extremely fast. This is a Wagner paint eater. So that paint eater makes the sanding, grinding paint down really fast. Feathers the edges of the paint nicely so they're not as prominent anymore, you know, with when you paint over it. Now all this bare wood, I'm going to go over it with Peel Bond as the primer, and that will help feather this out also. You could go to the extent of replacing all this, but the customer doesn't want to. It all comes down to, you know, customer's budget, what they can afford. This is brick mold, and it wouldn't be that difficult to replace it, but you know, it has to be within their budget. And this is, if you've never seen this stuff looks like wood, but this is not actually wood. It's like a composite material, kind of like it's a fiber board that has got a stamped imprint wood pattern on it. So it's very, very brittle when it has water damage to it. So you got to be very careful with it. And this is one of those cases you can discuss with the customer, you know, if they want to replace it or just repair it. And Peel Bond is a good product to, you know, save the customer money to help glue this blistering back together. And I definitely like hand brushing it on versus spraying it on, because you're getting it down into the fibers and pores and helping it glue it back together. So I'm just going to be very careful not to get it on the footings here. So I can just tuck cardboard under there. Now I can get it up underneath the lap of the siding to help seal it back up. Got to get it up underneath both of these laps here. The Peel Bond actually dries clear. I actually put white paint in it, just a little bit, to give it color, because once it dries, it's very difficult to see where you've put it. So if you put some white paint in it, or just any colored paint, you can tell where you've gone. But I just put it on super thick and heavy. We'll try to clean out their gutters here too to help remedy this, because if you solve this problem but you don't solve the problem of the gutters overflowing down here, it's just gonna continue to cause an issue with the siding. No, my last solo series, some people asked, why am I just hand doing this primer, going around, and there's not that much to do, and so I don't want to load up a sprayer, because you could load up a sprayer and do it, but Peel Bond is a super heavy product, so you'd have to load up a larger sprayer to prime with, and then you really have to back brush it anyways to get it pushed in and get everything sealed up and enhance penetration and adhesion by back brushing or back rolling. You could roll it too. I just always liked brushing and just the feel of being able to get it in with a brush versus a roller. You can see I used cardboard shields just down here just to protect the deck so I didn't hit the deck with the paint eater. Also, wearing eye protection. I'm wearing it's not just regular sunglasses I'm wearing Edge eye safety wear. So especially when you're using a grinder, definitely always want to wear safety gear when grinding. Last thing you want to do is get something in your eye and have to leave the job site to go to the doctor, because you weren't protecting your eyes good enough. I'm going to get this caulking off here. Re-caulk this. I'm gonna put one coat on here. I'm gonna let this dry, and then I'm gonna put another coat, and I'll eventually mask with frog tape when I do my second coat up against this metal, so I don't get anything on this metal on my next coat. There's caulking underneath there, so I'm gonna just cut it in right up against that caulking. Looks like this door was recently replaced. Down here, once I do this trim, I'm not going to caulk up against the trim here until I trim it out. Once I trim it out, I'll caulk up against there. That way I don't get it caulking on the vinyl on that slider. Just a couple more windows. Down here, the bottom of the siding is in pretty bad condition. So I'll have to deal with that. Just gotta be really careful. That is really, really brittle. Here's another condition where people have asked me, do you cut out the caulking or just caulk over? Most of the time we're caulking over the existing caulking, but this is a good scenario where you actually want to pull out the caulking, because this caulking's in bad shape, and you don't want to caulk over this because you're not going to be able to make it look good. So I'm just going to cut this out and redo these seams. Let this dry out a little bit. I'm just being really careful because the siding is extremely brittle in this area. You can see why, I like these knives. I got my knife and my 5-in-1 together. The 2-edge knife is just one tool. It's another one of those absolute game-changing tools that every painter should have. This here is another reason I like wearing gloves. Sticking your fingers up underneath the siding, you never know what's underneath there. What's gonna catch your finger, cut your finger, scrape your finger. But I want to get that all cleaned out under there. Getting ready to do this oil primer here, and I'm gonna be rolling it with a 9-inch roller because I just got this small area to do. I don't want to load up a sprayer because then you're gonna have to clean up with mineral spirits, and that's just a mess, and it's gonna take a long time. Faster just to roll it out. Just use cardboard shields to keep any splatter, off of the pavers. Now you only have to, you don't have to prime the whole house. You only have to prime the areas that wax bleed shows up. And the best way to determine that is when who's ever power washing will identify those areas. We typically take a spray can of spray paint, and every area that has wax bleed on it, we just put an X with a can of spray paint that shows us, hey, there's wax bleed right here, and this area needs to be primed. This house I power washed it, so I know exactly. This was really the only area that had it where it needed to be primed. The rest of the house, the water acted like it should act on a house this old, or the paint this old. I know the paint's probably 10, 12 years old or so. But in the afternoon, this side, the sun's gonna hit this here pretty soon, and it gets really, really hot because it's the afternoon sun. I'll tell you, this primer is just, if you're spraying it, it's just absolutely nasty stuff. It's, when we spray it, we always wear a monkey suit. You definitely do not spray this stuff without a monkey suit. It gets on your skin, gets on your clothes. Your clothes stink like heck. It's one way to stink up your house and really make your wife mad, coming home with this stuff all over your skin and clothes. Don't try to roll too fast either, because it just will cause it to splatter. Just slowly roll. Use a good quality roller, even though you're going to throw it away. Like I say, I'm using a Premier white woven roller because it's going to splatter less than if you use something cheap. This color originally was a pretty dark color too, and the color contributed to it. We're doing it a light gray this time, which the siding won't get nearly as hot. So it's gonna slow down this process of, the hydrocarbons coming to the surface. This house has a lot of bugs on the one side. There's a lot of cinch bugs, and if you've never used bug juice is a great product you can put in your paint that kills flying and crawling insects that land on the house. No. So something that you can do is to make a little upsell to your customers if you're a professional painter, putting bug juice, and it actually works really good. I've put it in houses, gone back 5, 6, 7 years later, and it's still killing spiders and bugs that are crawling on the house. It's a great, great product that I've used for years and years. We are going to be spraying with PPG's Timeless, so exterior paint and primer. Everything's almost ready to start loading up. I think this house, it's a pretty small house. I got 8 gallons of body that I'll begin just dumping in here, boxing in. I'm just gonna be masking really fast, so I'll be masking over the top of the trim because I'll be pulling it because I'm not gonna leave my masking overnight. So the masking goes really fast when you're pulling your masking same day. I do see I got a downspout right here I need to take off. So I always remove the downspouts, that way I can paint behind them, and I just put them on buckets and spray them. And I got some dirt over here, so I don't have to have drop cloths underneath them. So I'll set them on buckets to spray them. I'm typically going to run on my sprayers, my large sprayer, at least 100 feet of hose. This is an 840. I got 1140. I run 150 feet of hose, starting with 3/8. This is 2 50-foot 1/4-inch hoses with my own lime green custom whip, gun whip. Definitely don't want to be spraying without a whip. I do see people out there still these days spraying without a whip, and all it's going to do is cause you a lot of fatigue, wrist and arm fatigue if you don't have a whip on there. In every video I shoot, somebody's like, well, what about the car in the garage getting overspray on it? With these doors, once these doors are closed, they're sealed 100%. And no overspray is gonna go through the slats of this door. Been doing this masking process for over 20 years, and I've never had overspray go through a door because they're sealed 100% once they're closed. So, I get asked that question in every single video I do when I'm spraying a garage door. So, and I've had expensive cars in the garage and never once got overspray on them. So I've just masked the weather strip like that. I'm gonna close the garage door all the way. And then here's the next thing I get asked all the time is I put 2 rows of paper, and this is what I've been doing for 20 some years too, spraying the doors, and I've never got overspray outside the concrete. Outside the paper, actually. And this is just a matter of using the right tip, using the right pressure. Don't spray in the wind. Don't spray oil-based paints in cool weather, or if it's humid outside, you know, you're not comfortable, put a drop cloth out, a runner out in front of this. But I'm 100% confident that door right there is not gonna, or the concrete's not gonna get overspray on it. But y'all, once again, this is water-based paints. Live in a dry climate. It's nice and warm today. If anything falls to the ground, it's gonna fall to the ground as just silica dust. You don't want these things touching the house that you just painted and scratching it all up. So there we go. I'm gonna take this light off and then we're gonna shoot this garage door. And I'll show you, to give you a couple tips spraying garage doors. See a lot of people doing them a lot of different ways. And I'll give you some pointers how I do it and talk about why I do it the way I do it. All right, so I'm gonna spray this garage door here, and what I wanna do is when I spray this garage door, I'm gonna just walk the distance one time. So the panels run this direction, but I'm gonna spray it up and down, and I'll walk the distance once. If I spray it the way the panels go, I'm gonna be walking this door multiple times, and all that's gonna do is cause more work and more walking through the day. So I wanna walk the distance just one time, spray it from top to bottom, overlap 50%, and then I'll have the door done. You don't have to spray it vertically as long as you, or horizontally, you can spray it vertically as long as you overlap 50%. You're not gonna see any lap marks at all. So I like to say we paint lazy, and this is one of the paint lazy ways of painting. Try to walk as little as you can. And I'm gonna overlap, do my edges twice, and then continue from there. So I see some people go around do the edges first. There's no reason to do the edges first, but I'm gonna my first lap is gonna be twice because I wanna get, if you're overlapping 50%, you gotta hit your first run 2 times. So here we go. So now the door is all done. I just spray one coat on the door. It's overlapped 50%, and that is shot and done. Now, I don't know why anybody wouldn't use an extension. You see, I didn't have to bend over very far, and it's easy to keep your gun at the proper angle with an extension. You could retire, reach lower, not bending over, using a gun extension. Just a nice steady pace across the door, and it's one and done. I don't let the door dry. I'm going to let it set here for just a few minutes and then open it before it completely dries. If you allow it to dry, you better run your finger or a knife through the weather strip, because the weather strip could tack to the door and you could end up ripping the door opener right out of the back of the door. So don't let it dry, or make sure you cut this weather stripping right here. Run a 5-in-1. If you don't raise it before it's dry, run a 5-in-1 through here and lift this up and make sure that that's not tacked. I don't paint behind the weather strips. You can never see it except when the door raises and lowers, and I've never had a customer ever complain about it, except one time the customer wanted it painted. I did paint it, and then the door got really, really hot during the summer. It tacked to the door and stuck and ripped the garage door opener right out of the back, and that's my liability, my responsibility, because I painted behind there. So because of liability, responsibility, I do not paint behind the weather strips, and I don't paint inside the cracks here, because that could tack together too when the door closes, even after the paint dries. And the only time you see this is when the door raises and lowers. And I've never had a customer ever question that and ask me why I didn't paint it. So there's the door done. Got one, two, I only got one side in the back to spray. It's about, I don't know, what time is it now? 4 o'clock, and I started at 10:30 and we're cruising right along. I'm pretty sure this thing will be done tomorrow.